artists. Today we're going to do a piece based on some artwork by a man named Romero Britto. Parents, this is his spelling of his name, but some of my third graders and first graders have done artwork based on what we have seen of his. And I highly suggest looking at the videos where he's interviewed and talks with the kids. He does some really, really fun stuff, and I love his joy that you can see in his artwork. I love the way he feels about creating art. This is something similar to some of the things that he has done, or at least it's something that I was inspired to do based on some of his artwork for you guys. So we're going to do something kind of like this today. If you look at his artwork, you'll be able to be inspired in all kinds of ways to do all kinds of other stuff. This was done on copy paper with Crayola markers and a sharpie for the finished product. To begin with, you need a pencil and a plastic cup that maybe isn't too big. We might use both ends of it. I'm going to be doing this one on multimedia paper because I will be doing a little bit of watercolor with you guys in a little bit. All right, to start with, to make the fish, the first thing that we want to do for these types of fish is to trace around a cup. If you can draw a really good circle all on your own, or if you want a different shaped fish, please, you can do whatever works best for you. But I'm going to draw some circle fish, so I'm going to draw probably 3 again. I like the way the 3 work together. I'm going to do 2 big ones, and then I'm going to do 1 that is a smaller one. And to do the smaller one, I'm just going to turn the cup over. I'm going to trace around it like this from this end. And then, oops, see, that one didn't turn out quite perfect, did it? Now, that's not going to be a big deal. Any mistakes that I have when I go through and do my Sharpie, I'm going to be able to erase any pencil lines that I don't like. So if you have pencil lines you don't like, don't worry about erasing them right away. Wait until you're done, and then you can think about it. So here I have one kind of tail. I've done different tails on each one. One thing that you can do for your tails is you can trace around the cup again. So I'm going to put the cup down. I'm working on this circle. Actually, I'll do it on this side so you guys can see a little more easily. I'll put the circle here, the cup here, and I'll trace around part of the circle. Not all of it, just part of it. And then I can kind of mirror, or actually not mirror, but reproduce that curve just very carefully inside. If I want a different kind of tail, I could do that again. I could do the small end, so maybe this time I'll do the small end going, actually I'm going to do it on this side. You'll see when I pull it up. So I want my fish to go in different directions. They're not all swimming in a school. They're all doing their own school, kind of like we are right now, right? So this time I did a fish tail going like that, okay? And then off of this one, I'm gonna do a different kind of tail. This time I'm gonna do a really big tail for my little bitty fish, just because it's kind of fun. And this time I'm going to make it be a little bit fancier, okay? Off the top of my fish, I can either trace little partial circles to create the fins on the top. There's all different kinds of fins that you can make. And I talk about this sometimes in class. I really like fish because, in my opinion, there's thousands and thousands of fish in the sea that we haven't even discovered yet. So if my fish doesn't look like a fish that you might know, that's okay. Maybe it's just one that's out there that hasn't been discovered yet. Over here, I'm going to do a freehand fin and another little freehand fin on the bottom. And then over here, I'm going to do a big fancy fin and a fancy fin. Okay. Now, that's just the outline of the fish. Once I have that done, I'm going to go through and I'm going to draw waves. And I like doing different waves, different styles, different ways of doing it. So I'm going to go through this time. I'm going to do some kind of tight little C's. And when I say C's, that has to do with the shape. It kind of looks like a C. I'm going to go through my fish. And then I'll erase any lines that I don't like. If I don't want the lines to go through my fish later, I can erase them later. I'm not drawing very hard. Then I'm going to draw some bigger waves going in the other direction. Again, some small tight ones. And then again, some bigger ones. And maybe one more row of big ones, but going this direction this time. And the reason that I'm doing so many rows is not because I want all of those different lines. It's because it makes it a lot easier for coloring later if I have gone through and broken my paper up into a lot of different areas. It's easier for me to color. I'm going to stop when I get to my fish. I'm going to pick it up on the other side. But it's easier for me to color later if I have lots of different areas that kind of break up my space. I have to stop every time I get to my fish. Pick it up on the other side. Because I don't want my waves to wash over my fish. It's up to you as to how you decide you're going to complete this project. Any lines that are showing with my pencil that I don't like, that I mess up with on my Sharpie, as long as I erase them, nobody needs to know that I've made that mistake. And if I make a mistake, it's really not that big of a deal, right? If I make a mistake, I can fix it by erasing it, or I can feature it by making it be a part of my artwork. Different approaches, and neither one is wrong, but sometimes you can't fix something. Sometimes it's just the way it goes. And if you can figure out how to feature it, how to make it be a part of your plan, then you'll be a lot happier in the end. All right, so I have these waves. That actually kind of is kind of fun. I need to think about my fish themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and do the outlines of the fish. So I'm tracing around all of those really important lines. Right? Sometimes I have to change the direction of my marker to give me the best angle. And this is the one where I made the little bump tracing around that circle. So I gotta think about which line is the important line, the one that I want. And that would be this one. Now remember, your Sharpie is a pretty thick line compared to that pencil line. So as you're tracing, or as you're drawing, when we start to draw some of the details here in a minute, you need to remember that your Sharpie takes up a lot more space than your pencil line. And if that's the case, then as you're drawing with your pencil line, you want to give yourself more room than you might otherwise. Parents, if you choose not to have your kids use a Sharpie, I totally understand. Kids, if you're kids that maybe have a younger brother or sister that might use the Sharpie to draw on the furniture, or if perhaps you have at some point, you have to understand that your parents need you to be responsible, to be thoughtful of how you're working. Sharpies do not go away. So whatever you do, you want to make sure that you're always being thoughtful of what could happen and how you can help keep that from happening. All right, so now I have the main part drawn out. So I need to erase anything that I don't want to show up. So I'm going to hold my paper nice and firm. I'm going to take my big soft eraser. I'm going to erase any of those lines that I don't like. Any of the lines that are going to show up with my pencil. Get rid of those. I don't want to erase too hard. Oh, oops. I forgot that one. That was his bottom fin. Let me go ahead and put that in. I can still see where the pencil was. See? No big deal. And then, one of the things that I love with Romero Britto is that he finds ways to put lots and lots of pattern into his work. He's using bright colors. He does a lot of pattern. One of the things, if you watch one of the videos where he's talking about his work, he talks very specifically about the feelings that he wants people to have. And he says, when people look at my artwork, I want them to have a big smile on their face and an even bigger one in their heart. And to me, that is really just kind of the best feeling that I could give somebody. If I have somebody that looks at my stuff and walks away and it makes them feel really happy, that is something that would just give me joy inside. All right, so I have my fish drawn. I need to give them some details. So maybe this one, I'm going to give it some silly little lips coming off the front. Kind of like a partial heart. Over here, I don't really have space for the lips because of the waves. If I had done the waves after my details, then I might have space for lips, but I could give it a big smile like that. And this one, maybe I'll give it a little lip like that. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to do the details in Sharpie first so that you don't do too many little tiny lines with your pencil that you then have to trace over. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to give my fish eyes, a big circle for the main part of the eye, and then they can all be looking in different directions, so I can do that. I can have this one looking up maybe, and then this one could be looking down. So that little curve that you put inside the circle kind of gives an idea of where your fish might be looking. If I wanted to give them, because I know some of you guys just love eyelashes, I could give my fish eyelashes. They don't really have eyelashes, but you know, we haven't discovered these fish yet, right? A can give them the scales. So to do the scales, I kind of do a whole bunch of little bump lines going across my fish like this. Then I can come in from the side and I bump into that one. From that one I bump to there. And then I bump to the next bump, and to the next bump, and to the next bump. So my bumps, the bottom of one bump goes into the top of another bump. And that kind of gives the idea of scales. And one more time, I think, on these. It gives me several places to color. I'm breaking up my space so I'm not having to color one big solid section. So on this one, I think I'll give it some little wiggly stripes. Just a few. And again, it's really kind of all about giving myself different areas to color, so I'm not having to color everything all the same. That gets boring for one thing, and it gets pretty tricky sometimes too. This one I'm going to give some little stripes kind of like this. If you want to give your fish gills, you can give your fish gills. I like polka dots in the tail, so I'm going to do some little polka dots in the tail. They can all be different. Nothing has to be the same. I think it's more fun for me if I do things different. Now, the other reason to use a Sharpie on this is if you're doing watercolor or if you're doing a water-based marker, the water-based marker will get smeared if you're doing the black. So the Sharpie will help keep things from smearing. All right, so I feel like that's pretty good on that. Now, if I want to, Romero Britto always seems to have hearts in his artwork. He breaks his spaces up with lots of pattern. I'm not going to do too much of that, but I do think I will put some little hearts out here in my artwork. And maybe some polka dots, just to kind of give me a little bit of pattern to break up my color. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I've got this going. Now I need to think about how I'm going to paint it, how I'm going to color it, what I'm going to do. I am not going to paint this whole one here with you guys because you'll get really bored, and I don't want you guys to be bored. This is supposed to be something that you guys are moving on to and having fun with. But I do have some watercolors here. I will do a separate video in a little while that is all about how to paint, how to color, what you're working on. So I'm going to begin with a brush that I'm going to get a little bit wet. I don't have my towel. Here's my towel. I have my towel. So I want to make sure that it's pretty clean. So I got to rinse it, wipe it inside the cup, dry it off on my paper towel, maybe a little bit more of a rinse. There we go. Now with watercolor, you don't want to dig into your watercolors. You want to just kind of brush them and see what they give you. So I've got my purple here. I'm going to brush, brush, brush. And then I'm going to paint. And as I'm painting, this is pretty dark. I don't know that I want it to be that dark. I can think about adding a little bit more water. But as I'm painting, I'm always going to drag this brush softly around my areas. So I want to kind of go around my lines. This may not be the best brush for this. That's okay. With watercolor, you're going to see some difference in your color, the way it works. You can always layer and get it a little bit darker. So it's usually best to start a little bit light. So I've added some water to my brush, and then I come in and I just slowly drag that color out. That's going to make that a little bit better. Okay. I'm going to do a different video that's going to be just about coloring techniques, painting techniques. It's going to help you guys out a little bit with some of this kind of stuff. Oh, that's pretty cool, isn't it? You can do a watercolor wash. We'll talk about that. So I would love to see your Romero Britto paintings. Parents, I really highly suggest going in and looking at some of his videos, seeing some of his artwork online, but do it with your kids. Artists, do all kinds of really cool artwork, but some of it is not always what all of you want your kids to see. His artwork is all really fun. It depends on your comfort level of what you and your kids are looking at together. So go through, see what you like, see what of his artwork inspires you, and it does not have to be his fish. I do like his fish, which is why I chose to do the fish, but I would love to see something that you do based on his artwork that maybe is a totally different subject. I know my third graders, we did some patriotic pictures based on his stuff. My first graders, we did, I think, a sunset perhaps this year. He's got some cool bugs and butterflies. So we'll talk about those once you have posted some pictures of different things that you like. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I will post a picture of my finished one later, and I would love to see pictures of your finished ones. You guys have a great day.